And we are live for episode 13 of
Lucky
lowering.
number.
Yeah, lucky number 13. We had this. What? When did we talk about this? We were talking about like lucky number, unlucky number 13.
I'm not sure.
It was on a previous episode,
Yeah,
though, and I remember it, and we really got into it because we talked about how 13 is typically an unlucky number.
Yeah.
But for us, was it on episode 7? We were like, lucky number 7? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but it did happen.
It did happen. And so if anybody in the audience is like, wow, I remember that episode. That was an awesome episode. And it was really funny banter. You don't have to message me about it. It's fine. You could if you want, but it's not like a game breaker. Today, if you're on video, you're going to see that we got some lovely flowers. A brand new addition to the studio, the podcast studio.
Yeah.
Which is really just our dining room table that we...
You're breaking the illusion.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I should cut this out. Okay, today... on episode 13 of Lowering the Barrier, we have a Q&A episode. And we plan to do these every month, maybe every other month is probably more realistic, every like 6 to 8 weeks roughly. And I post the question box on my Instagram a few days before the recording. And you can ask questions anonymously or non-anonymously. And we have a lot of really good questions today. So some of my favorite questions are should CGMs be used for everyone? Continuous glucose monitors, all the rage right now. Mm-hmm. Best mom workout split, for busy moms. And a kind of an opinion-based one, should I take Ozempic? And the person even said, please try to talk me out of it, which is very interesting. So we're going to dive into that. And before we do, what we have to do is just the standard intro. So if you want to support this podcast or Maddie and I, Maddie recently left her job to come work with me full time.
I did. Yeah, this is
huge celebration.
Yeah, I guess. Well, your audience knows, but we haven't made that announcement on the podcast.
Not on the podcast yet. So that was official last Friday, and so we're really, really excited. So congratulations to us. Really excited for this next chapter. So if you want to support us, we have the A-Team, which is my group training program, 4 days per week, 6-week cycles. The next cycle is going to be updated this upcoming week. So Sunday, the 7th, April 7th, there will be a brand new cycle. So if you're interested in trying that out, there's a 7-day free trial. Forward Forever, you just missed registration. We had our second biggest registration period since, our biggest since the first one. Yeah. Which is really cool. This is cycle number 6 for Forward Forever, and we just hit just a massive number of signups, about 300 signups. So really, really, really cool there. The next registration window opens 5/5, and we begin, is it May 13th? I believe?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. If you want to support us non-monetarily, which we appreciate just as much, follow us on Instagram. You can follow me at AlexToomeyFitness.
Or me at Meals with Maddie.
And if you would be so inclined, give us a 5-star rating, screenshot, share on your, follow, subscribe, whatever you got to do, screenshot and share on your Instagram story and tag us. And we really appreciate that because it shows other people, hey, we do indeed have listeners. And actually, I did a quick calculation the other day, and across Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, we're averaging between 700 and 800 listeners per episode.
Yeah.
Which
fantastic.
For a podcast that we are on episode 13.
Yeah.
That is a shockingly high number of listens.
Yeah. I didn't realize that it had grown that quickly.
Right. Yeah. And we just had our first guest episode. Our last episode was with Danielle, the dietitian. And it was a lot of fun. And so I think we are going to work on more guests. And actually, we have our next guest lined up. It is Trevor Zerke. Mm-hmm. He is a chiropractor he's very interesting because 99% of his, what do I call it here?
Like method?
Yeah, method or the way he works with people is not manual adjustments, which chiropractors are pretty typically known for. So that'll be a very interesting one. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of debunk toward other chiropractic videos. So it'll be very, very interesting. Really excited for that. That one will drop on April 16th. So 2 weeks from the drop of this one. Okay. Anything you want to share? What have we been up to? Any media recommendations? Teamfight Tactics.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a game that we've been playing called Teamfight Tactics. It's made by the same people as League of Legends.
Yeah. We've been playing this on and off. We go through
phases for the last few years.
Yeah, for like 4 years now.
Something like that, yeah. And it's auto chess, if you're familiar with that genre, which is a very small genre, but it's basically like you have these little units and you kind of like build a team. And every time you play the game, you start from scratch. It's maybe like 30-minute rounds, and you can team up. So Maddie and I can team up and play against 3 other teams of duos. And so it's just a fun little, 30-minute game that we can play at night together. And Maddie doesn't have the same depth of video game experience that I have. I've been playing since I was 3 years old, like very consistently, maybe even 2 years old. And so there are a lot of video games that can be tough for us to play together at even remotely the same level. But this is one where it's like you just drag and drop units and you use your brain rather than like reflexes, and you don't need the super deep understanding of this game to just kind of get in and play pretty casually. So really fun. Team fight tactics if you're curious, and it's free to play. Okay, ready to dive in here?
I think so.
Awesome. All right. So we got about maybe 12, 15 questions, and we're going to work through them. And there will be timestamps if you want to skip around. Okay. First, why not CGMs for everyone? A CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. And basically it does that. It monitors your blood glucose. And so this is a really big deal for diabetics. Mm-hmm. For people who have diabetes. Now, if you're unfamiliar with like what diabetes is or how it works, diabetes happens. Well, I don't know like why or how it specifically happens, but basically what's going on is when somebody without diabetes, like an otherwise healthy individual, eats something, and it can be anything, especially something high in carbohydrates, but even something high in protein and whatever, it will spike your blood glucose. Your blood will have more sugar in it. And then the pancreas reduces. Can you fact check me on pancreas? The pancreas will release insulin, and that brings our blood glucose down, blood sugar down into a healthy range. Yes, pancreas. Just making sure before I said like the wrong thing. Okay. So anyway, you can tell I am not a diabetes specialist when I was like, can you just fact check me on pancreas real quick? So for diabetics, this is a really big deal because they know they could be much more accurate with their insulin release. They have to inject insulin in order to, because their body is not releasing it at the same rate. They become insulin resistant to some degree. So why would CGMs not be useful for everyone in this case? Because in somebody who doesn't have diabetes, these increases in our blood glucose and then our pancreas releasing insulin to bring that blood glucose back into a healthy spot, that is a normal physiological response to food. And so if we are trying to micromanage this, it doesn't make us healthier. It doesn't do anything extra beneficial. And it can lead a lot of people to really overthinking. Like I've seen people that are avoiding fruit. I've heard of people avoiding fruit because they're worried about blood glucose spikes. And this is just ridiculous.
Right.
If you have a very large blood glucose spike, you might be hungrier later in the day because of that. But this isn't something that like you have to completely avoid. You have to, there's one charlatan named, Glucose Goddess. And she is, millions of followers. And she just, she's spearheading this movement of like everybody should be wearing a CGM. And actually the person that I made that long debunk post about, the person I saw live at a conference, one of the things was she said every one of her clients wears a CGM. Now, Dr. Adrian Chavez, I really liked what he had to say on the topic, and it was on a podcast with Jordan Lips, and he said, worrying about glucose spikes is like, when you are not diabetic, is like weighing yourself after every meal and avoiding foods that will make your weight spike. And I just think that is a perfect example of why you shouldn't worry about this. You are majoring in the minors. You are worrying about something that has no effect on your overall health. If you're diabetic, yes, absolutely. A CGM is a great idea. If you're non-diabetic, you are getting very focused on something that literally makes no impact on your health. Chronically elevated glucose, not a good thing.
Sure.
Not a good thing. But that is going to happen in a calorie surplus for a very extended calorie surplus. Like I'm bulking, so I'm in a calorie surplus, and I'll do this for months. But it is when somebody gets in such a calorie surplus that they are adding a ton, that maybe they're not exercising. Maybe they are not, like lifting weights. Maybe they are in a massive calorie surplus. Maybe they are getting very overweight, not just like a little overweight. Not that I'm overweight or anything, but well, technically on BMI, I am overweight. But
yeah, BMI is a whole other thing.
Yeah, BMI is a whole other thing. Helpful for population data, not so helpful on an individual basis in most cases. Anyway, but acute changes in glucose are like in blood glucose are normal and expected. So don't worry about this.
Yeah. Could you even like avoid them completely? Like, would that even be possible?
You could minimize them, and you could do this by, and so for like the diabetics listening, they already know this because they've talked to, probably a dietitian or a doctor or something like that. Not that doctors always have the best nutrition training, but whatever, topic for another day. But you could mitigate your blood glucose response, or like, I don't like saying the word spike because spike has this like negative connotation. Like it's like, oh, spiking it. Like it just has this negative connotation. But I'm going to these blood glucose elevations, these normal blood glucose elevations, you could mitigate them by adding foods together. So for example, if you were to eat 3 Oreos, that sure would make your blood glucose spike, elevate. And then insulin would be released and it would come back down. If you were to pair those 3 Oreos with a cup of broccoli or some protein, kind of have this like mixed meal dietary composition in a meal or in a plate, then that would not increase your blood glucose to the same degree because your body will take more time to digest all those things because it's working to digest all those things. So that would reduce the elevation and less insulin would be released. But again, you don't have to do this. It's not an issue, but that for somebody with diabetes, that is something that they may want to consider doing, is kind of having a lot more of these mixed meals rather than just like single foods in isolation. Okay. Yeah. Great first question. I saw that one. I was like, oh,
that is a great one.
That's a great question. Next, is there a difference between a B Stance RDL versus normal RDL in terms of muscles worked? No, there's no difference. So a B Stance RDL is where it's kind of like a single leg. I like thinking about it as like 1.5 leg almost, because it's not a single leg in the sense that one leg is just being totally swung up in the air. A B stance, you have your non-working leg behind you, kind of like a kickstand on a bike, and it's there to balance you. You shouldn't be putting too much weight on it. 90% of your weight should be in your working foot or your working leg. So in terms of muscles being worked, it's still going to be, for a standard RDL, we're biasing glutes, and we'll get maybe a little bit of hamstrings depending on how much knee flexion there is, but that'd be more of like a stiff leg deadlift thing. But anyway, nope, you're still going to be working your glutes. You're still going to be getting a bit of the hamstrings. B stance is just, 1, a variation, maybe to keep it fresh, and 2, maybe if you have one side that's like way stronger, like, you got glute god on your right cheek and pancake butt on your left, which would be crazy, then a B stance RDL might be a good idea to just kind of like, even out the cake a little bit. But no, in terms of difference muscles worked, maybe the B stance has a very marginal bit more adductor, but I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to do the B stance for my adductors. Like no, I wouldn't worry about that. Next, are reverse lunges and Bulgarian split squats the same in terms of muscles worked? These 2 questions were by the same person. Sort of. So a Bulgarian split squat will have, depending on how you perform them, you could do a more quad biased Bulgarian split squat or rear foot elevated split squat. Same thing. You could do a more quad biased by driving that front knee further forward, where you get more knee flexion, or you could do a more glute biased Bulgarian split squat. And you could do this with any split squat, basically. You can change the bias based on what joints are moving. You can make it more glute biased by getting more hip flexion, kind of sinking your hips back, keeping that front foot a little bit closer, like the leg perpendicular to the ground, and just focusing on going down and back with that hip. So bringing your chest closer to your top of your thighs. You're getting a lot of hip flexion, which will, get a big stretch on the glutes. So now with reverse lunges, typically we have pretty much a perpendicular to the ground lower leg. So like your lower leg below the knee, that basically stays perpendicular to the ground. And then we push our non-working leg back. And when we do that, we get a ton of hip flexion. So it's really dependent on how you're performing the Bulgarian split squat in terms of, are you getting more glutes or are you getting more quads? But reverse lunges are a lot of glutes and still a good amount of quads. It's not no quads, but you are getting kind of a different variation of both. So it just depends on performance or execution. But both ways, you're going to get a good bit of glutes, a potentially decent bit of quads, depending. You still will get a good bit of quads and maybe a bit of adductors as well on both. Next, another great question. I want to take Ozempic, but not to lose weight, just to lose the food noise. I'm so jealous of friends on it who never have to think about food anymore. Meanwhile, I spend a lot of thoughts on what to eat. I track, I know macros, but it's exhausting. Talk me out of taking it for this reason. Oh, man. Okay.
This is kind of a loaded question.
Well,
like, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it. So Ozempic, if you're unfamiliar, what have you been living under, a stupid rock or something?
Why'd you have to throw stupid in there?
Well, I didn't call the person stupid. I said stupid rock. So yeah, no, it's totally okay if you're not familiar with Ozempic. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people. It's just like this is my world, my industry. And so Ozempic is a weight loss drug originally formulated for diabetics, and they found out that it was showing insane promise with just weight loss. People were losing weight with this thing. And I don't fully understand the mechanisms of action of this prescription drug, which shocker, I'm not a doctor, like a medical doctor or any doctor. I need to clarify. I'm not just not a medical doctor. I'm not any kind of doctor. Okay. Anyway, so Ozempic is a weight loss drug and it reduces your satiety signals. So a lot of the marketing, especially coming around, especially with Weight Watchers these days, is that it reduces your food noise. And food noise is kind of this thing. I'm not going to do the best explanation of it, but like these constant bombardment of thoughts about like, what to eat next and just kind of surrounding that. And so this isn't too much of a shocker, but if you're not hungry, you don't think about his food as much. And if you are hungry, it's basically the only thing you can think about. Right. Especially if you're very hungry and especially if it dominates your thoughts all day, every day. And this is a similar example, not perfect, but when I was the leanest I've ever been, it started getting a little weird. Yeah. I was like bodybuilder contest lean, stage lean at this time. And I mean, I was saving recipes. That's not something I do. No, you don't even really cook. No. And I was like, oh, this recipe looks so good. And I had this folder on my phone of recipes that I wanted to try. And that is so out of the norm for me. Right. And I was constantly like pre-planning my food as a way to just kind of like structure my diet. That is not inherently harmful or anything. Right. But it is, and I do still pre-plan. Like today, I'm bulking, but I'm like, hey, what are we having for dinner? So I can kind of allocate some calories accordingly. That's not necessarily a bad thing or harmful thing. But I did notice myself having an obsession about food and recipes, and sometimes even watching YouTube videos of people like making food and Instagram and TikTok videos of people watching food. And it started getting a little weird. And so I don't want to say like, people who have food noise, this is exactly what they experience. But maybe if it's some degree of this, dude, I get it. I understand wanting to go to medicine. And let me do this overarching thing that I think I always need to say of we would never shame somebody for being on blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication. So why the hell are we shaming people for taking a weight loss medication if they have struggled with the disease of obesity their entire lives, and now there's this medicine that could change their life, get them to a healthy spot? And there are people out there that say, we don't know the side effects of Ozempic. We don't know the side effects. Well, we do know the side effects of obesity. Right. And they're really bad. Yeah. And they can lead to death. And I know that is very dramatic, and I don't want to be like too fear-mongery, but I just want to shut down the arguments against Ozempic. Now, for somebody who's doing it for like vanity purposes, like they're already at a healthy weight, they just want to lose 5 pounds, I don't think this is the right thing for you to do. That's a conversation with you and your doctor. But and again, because I'm not a doctor, because I'm not super well educated on prescription medications in general, I don't want any listener to really take my perspective as like, that is the truth. That is the only thing I should listen to. Right. Maybe just add it to the perspective of your decision-making process. I don't know if it's a medicine that you're going to get on for a while and then get off, because once you get off,
like what happens,
those hunger signals are going to come back. And so it'll dampen those hunger signals, and you might be thinking about food less because you're not hungry. But is there, for the person who's on the fence, asking this question, this was an anonymous question. For the person that's asking this, it's, have you done everything? Have you tried to change your food environment? Have you tried to maximize your food volume? Have you talked to a cognitive behavior therapist that specializes in dietary food patterns? Have you done everything before you turn? And I'm not saying like you have to do everything before you turn to medicine. Like that's not what I'm trying to say, but this is a sensitive topic.
Definitely. And again, we don't know who asked this. Yeah. Not that really makes a huge difference. But one thing that is quote unquote interesting is you say, but not to lose weight.
Yes. You're going to lose weight. You're almost guaranteed going to lose weight.
If weight loss is not a factor of it, I think that there are probably steps to take first. And if you are struggling with a food obsession or like mental aspects of food struggle, I think a therapist is probably a really strong first start.
Yeah.
Again, when it comes to taking Ozempic, that's between you and your doctor. I will never say that you should or should not, anything like that. But if your goal is not weight loss and it's surrounding this obsession with the thoughts about food, I'm
going to point people toward Michelle Yates, friend of the podcast, friend of Alex Teamy. You haven't talked to her or met her, but no. I know like I've talked about her enough that I think you two would be friends, and she will hop on the podcast. I hope at some point. I haven't asked her, but I'd love to have her on. But Michelle Yates, what's her Instagram? Is it Yates_nutrition? Can you pull that up for me? But we're going to find out her Instagram, and she is somebody that has my top recommendation for somebody that can help you.
Yates Nutrition.
Just Yates Nutrition. That's YATES Nutrition on Instagram. She gets my highest recommendation on emotional eating, binge eating. She's a registered dietitian. I think she's just brilliant in this field, and that's something that I don't have the skills to help people with this emotional eating, binge eating. I don't have. That's a whole thing.
Yeah. All that to say, the food noises. It can be loud, and it can be very hard to deal with, but we're not ones to say whether or not you should take Ozempic for that reason.
Nope, unfortunately. But great question, and I hope you find clarity to make the decision that's right for you. Next, best busy mom workout split. Sorry. So depends on how busy. I'm assuming so you're a mom, so you're probably pretty busy, and so I actually just had a call. I do those free calls. And if you're wondering, if you're just listening to this and you're like, free calls, I want to hop on a free call with you. I closed it because I opened it in January. And within, I think 1 hour, I was booked until July, late July. So I had to close down the wait list. I don't know if I'll continue it just because the baby's coming. So I don't really know if I might figure out something else. But anyway, so I was on a call with somebody earlier today, and we were talking about, how can she set up her workout programming? And first it's how many days per week can you commit to this? Then it's how much time per session can you commit to this? Then it's what priorities do you have? What are your goals? And so very generally speaking, I told her this, and I tell a lot of people this. There are a lot of gains to be made with very minimal work, very minimal time, as long as you're using that time efficiently. So even if you work out twice per week, that could be enough to gain appreciable amounts of muscle given enough time. And there are diminishing returns to the amount of volume you do. So as you increase, would 5 days be so much superior to 4 days? Like, is it going to be 25% you're adding, another day? Is it 25% more growth? No, it's not. 10%? Maybe. 12%, 5%, maybe, but there are diminishing returns to the amount of volume. So really it's the first sets and the less not the less, but like the first sets are the most stimulative. So what I would do is try to lift 2-3 times per week. If I'm a busy mom, I'm trying to lift 2 to 3 times per week, maybe 20 to 30 minutes per session. And I'm going to be filling that with compound movements. So if you're unfamiliar with compound movements, it's just multi-joint movement. So like a bend, like I'll actually talk about those in a second, and I would probably be trying to do supersets just for time efficiency sake. I would also keep the intensity very high so that I don't have to do as much volume, because as intensity goes up, volume needs can come down and we get the same amount of muscle growth. So focus on the 6 basic movement patterns. Some people argue that there could be like 7, but let's just focus on 6, maybe 8, but let's just focus on the 6. Vertical, push, and pull. So, a vertical push, an anterior delt press, overhead press, a vertical pull, lat pull down. Sure. Horizontal push and pull. So a dumbbell bench press and a dumbbell row, for example, or a cable row, or a machine chest press, something like that. Now, then a squat pattern. This could be barbell squat, dumbbell squat, split squat, lunge, a lot of variations there. And a hinge. And so something like a Romanian deadlift, stiff leg deadlift, hip thrust. Not as big of a fan of hip thrusts, generally speaking. They're fine. But for glutes, I wouldn't put them as like my top tier exercise, despite what most people would think, that like hip thrusts are the gold standard for glutes. They're good. So I'd be trying to do all 6 of those movement patterns. I'd be trying to hit each movement pattern twice per week. And then I would superset things that are not competing for the same muscle group. So for example, I would not superset like a squat and a hinge, because you're probably going to hit glutes on both.
Right.
I would not superset a horizontal push and a vertical push, because you're probably going to be hitting the triceps and anterior delts for both. And so there's going to be, a little bit of interference there. You could do a pull and a push. You could do a squat and a push. You could do a hinge and a pull. There's a lot of ways that you can superset these things. But if you are doing 3-4 exercises, 2 to 3 sets each, 90 seconds of rest in between, superset. So it's like exercise 1, exercise 2, rest 90 seconds to 2-3 minutes. And then you do that again. You do you could get a full workout done, 20-30 minutes, do that 2-3 times per week. You're going to be golden, and you're going to have as good or better muscle growth than most other people who are lifting 5 times a week, but don't have like a structured program.
Right.
It's a great time for me to plug both Forward Forever and the A Team.
Yeah.
Forward Forever has instructions for how to reduce workout days per week from 4 to 3, and then also how to reduce the time per workout. The A Team, you could always join that. Try it out for 7 days. And if you don't have, if somebody listening to this can't afford $27 a month, which is the price of the A Team, go in, get the free trial, screenshot the workouts, run those, cancel it before you get charged. I promise I don't care. It's not going to offend me. I would rather have you do something that is pretty good, because I'm not to gloat, but I built it. It's my job. I'm decent at this stuff. It's going to be better than a Instagram swipe workout. Yeah. And just do 2 of those workouts and just, hammer those for a while, or 3 or whatever.
Yeah. 2 really quick things, because I think you nailed it, obviously. Anytime someone asks for the best workout or the best split, I always think, what is the minimum you can consistently adhere to? Yep. That's the best.
That's the best.
Yeah. And if you do more, great.
Bonus.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the other thing, I think people under recognize how fast a workout can go if you time your rest better.
Yeah.
And I'm so guilty of this.
Oh, yeah. My rest periods can be 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it's like, well, no wonder my workout's taking forever.
Yeah.
I've just been sitting here.
I just sit here. Yeah.
And I'm not saying like there's anything inherently wrong with taking a long rest or whatever.
No, but if you're a busy mom, if you're a busy dad, if you're busy whoever.
Set that timer, depending on what workout tracker you're using. Set a timer. Some have them built right in.
Yep.
For 90 seconds, 2 minutes, and be really consistent about getting into the next set. And you will be so surprised at how fast a workout can go when you're consistent with that.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't actually answer the question, which is kind of funny. I did such a long tangent, but I didn't actually answer the question. What is the best split? There is no best split. And so a split is just a way to organize our training volume in a way that makes sense. And so best split, if you're talking 2 days, you're gonna have to do full body.
Yeah.
Probably with to manage the amount of volume. I don't personally recommend going above 6 to 8 sets ish per muscle group in a single session. So when somebody says like, oh, I have like a I work out 2 days per week, and one day is a shoulder day, and the other day is a bicep day. It's like, what? What? That's crazy.
That's a little crazy.
Yeah. Even if I mean, honestly, even when somebody's doing like 4 workouts per week or 5 workouts per week, and they say I have a shoulder day, it's like, you have a shoulder day? You have a whole day just for your shoulders? Or like they have an arm day. It's like, you dedicate an entire day. I mean, if they're doing forearms too, then it's like, okay, that could be a whole lot. Biceps, triceps.
Sure.
You know, you got a couple muscles in your forearms. That's pretty funny because there's a lot of muscles in your forearms. But yeah, so busy mom workout split. Honestly, I'd probably just say, like, if you're doing 2 to 3 days per week, do full body or do like a full upper lower. Okay, heard cardio can reduce visceral fat without weight loss. 1, how does that work? And 2, does lifting do the same? And then this person even sent me a study.
How fun is that?
It was so nice. It's like, wow, you're really helping me out here.
Yeah.
So I looked at the PubMed article, which gives you the abstract, and then I dug a little deeper to find the actual study. And what I found was that the underlying mechanism doesn't seem to be fully understood on how visceral fat or cardio can reduce visceral fat without weight loss. The authors, in a 2016 study by Verhagen and colleagues, the authors stated, quote, a possible mechanism underlying these different effects on weight and visceral adipose tissue could relate to distinct changes in body composition during these lifestyle interventions. During caloric restriction, both muscle mass and fat mass are lost, resulting in a marked decline in weight. During exercise training, however, lean body mass and circulating plasma volume increase, while fat mass decreases. So basically just saying that, 1, they don't really know. They're not really sure the exact mechanisms of it, but probably because when you are exercising, if you are weight stable, you are increasing your muscle mass, but decreasing your body fat. And so the follow-up question was, does lifting do the same? I would venture lifting to say lifting does the exact same based on this, because that's exactly what you're doing. If you are at maintenance calories and give or take, you're maintaining your weight within a couple pounds, obviously there's fluctuations and all that, but let's just say you're roughly maintaining your weight and you're gaining muscle, but losing body fat at the same time, you're lifting, then yeah, I mean, I would assume that lifting does the exact same thing here. If you're not familiar with visceral fat, it's the dangerous fat, the stuff that collects around your organs. You do not want much of it. Mm-hmm. A little is okay, but actually I was going to make a post. I don't know if I told you about this, but I was going to make a post on this, and it was kind of like a bait and switch a little bit, and it had a good hook, and it was something along the lines of, it's not perfect yet, but it was something along the lines of, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is we can't spot reduce. The good news is technically we can. And I was going to reference a study that I unfortunately don't have pulled up in front of me right now, but a study that looked at people who drank alcohol. And if you don't drink alcohol, you have less visceral adipose tissue. And this is what happens when dudes get like that beer belly from drinking, especially. Like, yes, they are in a calorie surplus, which is causing that, but alcohol specifically increases visceral adipose tissue to a higher degree. So when dudes get that like really distended belly, that's dangerous. And it may just be a degree of that is where they store body fat, because people can store body fat in different areas. Some people store it in their face or their legs or their arms or their torso. But when it starts getting like really distended, it's like, ooh, I want you to lift. And like, I start getting a little concerned about it. That's all. Okay. Next question. 67-year-old woman. What would be the best approach to put on muscle? What exercise would you suggest? So the nice thing about, there is not going to be, and I'm gonna kind of clarify the statement in a second, but there is no exercise that would be better or worse for a 20-year-old versus a 70-year-old or 67-year-old, or a man versus a woman. Mm-hmm. Now, the kind of nuance here is that maybe there are some regressions or progressions that different people may need to do. Maybe a split squat isn't the best choice for somebody who's brand new to training, whether they're 20 or they're 67 years old or 80 years old. Maybe that isn't the best choice. Maybe they have to start off with high box squats or something like that, or some kind of assistance, and then build up to that eventually, Spanish squats. But over time, you could have a jacked 67-year-old, or you could have a very weak 20-year-old. And so it just kind of depends on the person. But ultimately, all muscle tissue is going to respond the same, and that is with resistance and load, and you can optimize that with adding stability. So the best approach to put on muscle, eat enough protein. I would say 0.8 grams, 0.7, 0.8 grams per pound of protein per pound of body weight. Use goal body weight if you have like 30-ish pounds or more to lose. However, as you age, you become anabolically resistant. Your body doesn't digest and process protein to the same capability as you were when you were 20 or 30 years old. So you may want to increase your protein, if possible, up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. Again, same thing goes if you have 30 more pounds to lose-ish, probably use goal body weight instead. And what exercises would you suggest? Go back to the mom split question. All those things are going to be very solid. For what it's worth. Let's see, my mom is 68 years old and she follows my training program, the Ford Forever training program. I've coached people up to 80 plus years old and they do all the same exercise. And again, there are always potentially regressions that I have to do. And that's just something that you're going to have to figure out with a pretty solid, either a pretty solid coach or a physical therapist, potentially, depending on your capabilities. But the nice thing is they are still the same movements. You're still going to be doing a press. You're still going to be doing a pull. You're still going to be doing a squat. You're still going to be doing a hinge. And so there aren't any, don't fall for the shit that's like, you need to be doing, Pilates, or you need to be doing this or that. Like, no disrespect to Pilates, but if you're trying to gain muscle, that's not the number one place I'd go. Will you gain muscle? Sure. At the same rate? No. What is your, talking about Alex's, me, third person was weird there. What is your training split? How long are you in the gym per session? So my training split is pretty interesting right now. I do 1 lower day per week because legs aren't necessarily a priority. I'm still gaining strength and size on my legs, just maybe not as quickly as I would if I was training them 2 to 3 times per week. But I'm pretty happy with the size of my glutes and my legs right now. And so I do 1 lower day per week and then somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 upper body days per week. And how long are my sessions? How long should they be? Hour?
Yeah.
Hour 15?
Yeah, it's a funny question to ask.
But
you work.
I work.
Yeah.
I bring my laptop out there, and between every set, it's like when we were talking about rest periods just a moment ago, I work between every single set. And so what should be a 2 to 3 minute rest period can easily be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes because I just get carried away. I'm like in the middle of a task. It's hard to pull me away. So legitimately, how long am I don't recommend this, but how long? 2 hours. 2:15 sometimes.
Pretty consistently around 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 to 2.5 hours is pretty normal for me right now. But again, that's not me lifting. Like, I'm not doing an insane amount of volume.
Right.
Typically, I do I don't really love going above 20 sets per workout. That ends up being a point where I start getting very fatigued. I'd say most of my workouts are in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 sets roughly. Some of my upper body days, I noticed actually that a couple weeks ago, I noticed after some testing, I need to reduce the amount of volume that I'm doing in my upper body day because I think it's 23 or 24 sets. And it's just like, that's a little bit, I'm kind of redlining at that point. I noticed my sleep was very disturbed. I was waking up multiple times throughout the night and I tried different things like, okay, is it this? Let's eliminate that factor. Let's eliminate this factor. Let's eliminate this factor. No matter what I tried to adjust for or whatever, control for it, anytime I would do that workout, and you got to keep in mind when I'm in the gym, every single set is 0 RIR.
Yeah.
And not even 0 RIR. I'm going past failure because I'm doing length and partials. So if I'm doing a cable chest press, I will go to failure till I cannot get a single more rep. And then I try for 2 to 3 more and it's partial reps. But so I'm hitting it with such high intensity that it just ended up being a little too much. So I need to parse those down a little bit. But how long am I in the gym per session? 2 to 2.5 hours. How long should it be? Hour and a half. Shouldn't be more than that.
I love that no one's asking for my training split. No one's curious about that.
I bet after you have this baby and you show like, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna, document that like return process. I think it'd be a good idea for us to do that.
Yeah.
But
I'll let you guys in on the secret.
Oh, wow. The secrets are exposed.
Yes. I won't even say training split. I'm just going to say my current routine or frequency of which I work out is a couple times a week. Alex will be preparing for his workout. He'll be heating up our gym, all of that. And he'll come in and he'll So he'll kind of gauge whether or not I'm busy, and he'll say, "Do you think you should work out today?"
Yep. Just a question.
And I'll say yes or no, depending on how guilty I feel
Yep.
that day. And he knows not to do this every time he works out but in all honesty, I'm trying to do at least 2 workouts a week.
Yep.
And I'm trying to do at least 1 cardio
Yep.
in addition to that.
You just bike. Yeah. We have a Peloton and we bike on it. It's nice.
Yeah. But that's my workout routine, is when Alex is like, "Hey."
People, once people see you on this other side of pregnancy, they're gonna be like, "Oh wow, what did you do? What on earth did you do?"
Yeah.
All right, next question. Rest days, how many and when? So it depends. I hate saying it depends, but that's the reality for most of this stuff. When I don't personally like doing more than 3 workouts, like 3 is my absolute max back to back to back before adding 1 rest day. I kind of follow this. My workouts aren't like I do it on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday and Friday. I don't do that. I don't follow that kind of rigid structure because I know I'm going to get it done no matter what when I can. And so my kind of general structure is 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. And some days, like let's say, maybe it's 1 day on, 1 day off. Maybe it's every other. It doesn't, like, for me, I'm not so concerned about hitting 4 workouts per week or 5 workouts per week or 3. I will do it when I need to do it. And I'm just extending, like, I don't have this strict timeline of, July 1st, I need to be looking this way. And August 1st, I need to be looking that way, because it's just unrealistic. We don't have control over that. It's like growing a flower. We can give it the water, the sunlight, the nutrients, the soil. We can give it all those things, but it's kind of out of our hands. We can give it the best shot we have. And that is how I view my training, my body composition. I will supply my body with the right calories. I will try to supply it with the right protein and fiber. I will control for the variables in the gym. I will do my best, but I also don't get upset if everything isn't going as perfectly as I hope it should. So how many rest days? At least 1.
Yeah.
But if you're recovering very well, maybe you don't need as many, as like somebody brand new to training. If somebody was lifting for the first time, just lift 2 to 3 times per week. Don't go all out, because your body's going to be struggling to recover from that.
Yeah.
So much that it's more worth your time to just rest and recover and give it your all at the next one.
Yeah. There's also probably something to be said of, if you find that 2 rest days, 3 rest days isn't enough, you might need to look at your training volume
or intensity.
Yeah. And see if there's something off there.
Yeah.
If you're not recovering in time for your next workout.
How many rest days? Between 1 and 6.
Yeah.
Definitely at least 1, and don't rest every day. You got to do something. And when it makes sense. If you're doing like an upper lower split, like an upper lower, then rest, then upper lower, that's a great way to do it. Then rest. I wouldn't do like upper lower rest. Like I wouldn't do 4 days back to back to back. If it works for you and that's the only way you can work in your schedule and you're not noticing trouble with recovering, that's fine. Some people have asked me, how do you know if you're having trouble recovering? You might be more irritable. You might be just sore. Soreness is the easiest one. You might be lethargic, like
bad
low
sleep.
Energy. Bad sleep is the one that I notice the most. And it's hard to pinpoint what is causing this bad sleep. It can be very difficult. Like, surely my workout, I'm not doing too much, but maybe it could be. There could be a lot of other things that could be impacting your sleep. So don't immediately just be like, Alex had to work out less because I didn't sleep so well. There are a lot of reasons that you could be sleeping poorly.
Could also be your next performance is significantly worse.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, I shouldn't say significantly.
Yeah, I mean, it could be significantly worse, but that also could just be on the day, because a lot of people, they think they will always have the best performance. Yeah. But that's just unrealistic. Some days you go into work and you're just feeling like $1,000,000 and you hammer out everything. Well, it's going to be the same way in the gym. Some days you just have a bad day and you're feeling like shit. And that's going to happen in the gym too. Yeah. One thing that Jordan Lips said one time, if you don't follow him, you should. He's a great guy. One thing that he said is, and I don't know if he got this from somewhere else, but should just attribute it to him. For every 5 workouts, you're going to have 1 that's a home run. You're going to feel so strong. You're going to feel on top of the world. 1 is going to be the worst workout basically of your life. It's going to feel horrible. You're going to hate being there. You're going to have to drag yourself to the gym. The other 3, they're just going to be okay. They're just going to be standard run-of-the-mill workouts, kind of going through the motions. Maybe you're a little higher, maybe a little lower on, like, in terms of, how engaged you are, but 1 great, 1 shit, 3 decent.
Mhm.
That is a very standard way to not just
Right.
look at your workouts, but I'm sorry, but your life. Not every
Yeah.
day is going to be the best day of your life. Some days are going to be kind of hard.
Yeah.
Some days are going to be pretty just standard days. And of course, we can always look for the bright spots. We could look for the bright spots in the workout. Oh, I did hit a PR on this one exercise. Or, hey, at least I just showed up today. And you can look for the bright spots in your life. You know, oh, I love these new flowers we got. Oh, at least it's sunny, at least part of today. Like, yeah, rain, but well, maybe the grass needed the rain. You know, there's so many positive ways that you can, and these bright spots that you can look at. And this is what kind of tilts the teeter-totter on, like, are you more optimistic or are you more pessimistic? And it's just like, what are you observing? The things that you observe are what change your perspective of things. Wow. What an answer for rest days. How many and when? All right, let's move on. Can amino acid supplements be helpful for women greater than 60 to hit higher protein synthesis? Yes, but. I want to so quickly follow it up with a but. So protein, any protein, whether it's a protein supplement like whey protein powder, essential amino acids, branched chain amino acids, or just like milk, cheese, fish, whatever, tofu for our vegan friends. Any of those things contain protein. Protein is made up of individual amino acids. So when you're saying amino acid supplements, you're basically saying, like, will amino acids, if I supplement with amino acids, will it increase my amino acids? Yeah. Yep, it will. But I was talking to Maddie about this while we were prepping for this podcast. And I said, it's kind of like if you bought a Lego kit to build, this isn't a perfect representation, I'll explain why, but if you bought a Lego kit to build a Lego house and the Lego company was like, okay, here's everything you need to build your Lego house. And you bought that. And then they said, do you also want, for $5 extra, $10 extra, whatever, do you want these extra pieces? And you're like, oh, well, what are those extra pieces for? And the Lego kit or Lego company's like, I don't know. It's just, now you have them. And it's like, do I need them? And they're like, I don't know. You have enough to build your house, right? And you're like, I think so, right? And they say, yeah. And so you say, why? Okay, well then why do I need more Lego pieces? They say, do you want them? Now, unfortunately, the marketing around amino acid supplements and like essential amino acids and branched chain amino acids are dog shit. Don't buy those. They're fine if you like overpriced flavored water. And I will say the flavors are delicious. They have like Rocket Pop. It's very delicious, very tasty, but it is very overpriced because it is just 3 of the amino acids and you are not getting all of the essential amino acids, meaning the amino acids that your body cannot synthesize on its own. Essential amino acids, those do, EAA supplements, those do contain all the amino acids that your body can't synthesize. So that's a little bit better. But like protein powder will do this. Any complete protein source, any animal source of protein is a complete protein source. So if you're already hitting your protein needs, adding an amino acid supplement of some kind, BCAAs or EAAs, on top of that is like dumping water on your head when you're in a pool. Mm-hmm. This is a meme that I think originally Dr. Nadolsky created, and it was just so funny, and it was shared by so many people. And it was just like the perfect, like, you know, taking BCAAs, and it was this swimmer who's dumping water on his head in a pool. It's so funny. And it's just such a perfect visual. So like, will it be helpful? If you are already hitting your protein needs, then no. And if you are not hitting your protein needs, then any type of protein would be helpful to hit higher protein synthesis or muscle protein synthesis specifically. Any thoughts on that? I feel like I kind of covered it, but yeah.
That's a little bit above my pay grade. I'll be fully transparent here. I don't think people are asking these scientific questions for my insights.
Very reasonable. Yeah, very reasonable. I think over time, now that you are working with me full time, like you already have a pretty good grasp of fitness and nutrition, but I think especially just working with me full time now, I think you're going to start absorbing more and more and more. Yeah. And I think you already do learn a lot just from being on the podcast and listening to my answers and being around me and hearing the things that I say. But
yeah. And there are definitely some topics and questions that I feel more comfortable giving my perspective on.
Yeah, for sure.
And others, I just know when to say I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, next. Should you track non-starchy vegetables? Do you want to handle this one? This is your wheelhouse.
Yeah. What a fun question. There are certain foods that are so low calorie that it's like, you know, I made a salad today with 100 grams of romaine lettuce.
Yep.
100 grams of romaine lettuce is 17 calories.
Right.
Are we really?
That's a rounding error.
Are we really stressed about 17 calories?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
However, couple things. One, fiber. Fiber is really important to track. And if you struggle hitting your fiber goal, I think you should track all fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, until you can consistently hit a fiber goal. Yes, I agree.
The other thing is, do we maybe get down this, oh, well, it's probably low calorie, so I don't need to track it. And then we do that 5, 10, 15 times a day.
Yep.
You know, it's like when you use the bank account analogy of like, oh, well, I'm not going to budget anything under $5. It's like, okay, but if you spend $5 7 times a day, that's, woof.
Yeah, right.
So
starts adding up.
It starts adding up. Now, if you're eating a bowl of watermelon or a bowl of lettuce,
it's fine.
It's fine. I'm not going to sit here and say you have to track that.
No.
But I do think the fiber is one thing to keep in mind, and then just be aware of your overall habits when it comes to tracking.
Yep. I agree. When somebody's new to tracking, I say track everything so you get a really good understanding of your calorie intakes. And not only that, but also like where your calories are coming from, what kinds of foods have higher or lower calories. Yes. If you are a vet and you are, quote, general population, I'm using some air quotes here, meaning like you just generally care about gaining some muscle, losing some body fat, leaning out a little bit, then I don't think you need this. But if you're new to tracking, I would track everything. If you don't feel like you need to track it because it's not, really adding up your calories, don't sweat it.
Yeah.
Next question. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. So funny that we did the Lego analogy because Danielle's husband asked this one, Matt.
Oh, I love that.
He's a big Lego guy. And so he kind of got me, I'm going to say like he kind of really softly got me into Lego. And I'm going to say like I've completed 2 builds. We did one together. I did one alone. Yes. And so he said, why do you like it? What's y'all's favorite? So I noticed that I had never been a Lego kid growing up, a Lego adult. I never did Legos or anything like that. But Really? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, my brother did, but I never did. So I just found that it was a really nice way for me to disconnect when I built the Mandalorian helmet. I could put my phone aside, not worry about it, because I'm always so connected to work. I'm always reading something or doing something, studying something, talking to somebody, answering questions, making social media posts. It's just there's always something to get done. And this was just a nice way to disconnect for a little bit. Now, I will say we built one together. We built the up house. It was super cute. It was fun doing that together. It's just, again, a nice way for us to disconnect for a little bit for 30 minutes at a time. Then we decided for her birthday, I was like, let's buy one of the biggest Lego builds ever. It'll be awesome. Well, this table that we were using, if you're on video, you can see it. It's not super small, but it's not huge. This is not big enough for the Lego build, which was a Harry Potter. It was like the Hogwarts train.
Yeah.
And it has multiple scenes inside of it from different movies. We got maybe 15 minutes into that one.
Yep.
And then we adopted Rosie, our puppy golden retriever.
Yeah.
And everything got fucked. We have no time.
Actually, that doesn't even totally line up because we got that in December.
Yeah, you're right.
But we did get very busy.
We got very busy. Yeah, we got very busy.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what happened, but
we got very busy. And so now it's just, there are like 30 pieces put together and they've just been sitting in our bedroom.
But we will get back to it.
Maybe. When?
I don't know.
But what's y'all's favorite? I would say the up house.
The up house was so cute. I think if we had picked one, like another small one,
manageable.
Yes, we would have absolutely continued on. This one
feels
so
like,
big.
Where are we going to put it? We don't have anywhere to put it.
That is a really good point.
Right.
We should have measured.
But we didn't. Well, I just bought it because it was your birthday and I was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cute.
It's cute.
The scenes are great, but yeah.
How does Forward Forever adapt to someone on heart medication, high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, and is postmenopausal? So we don't really have these specific adaptations on an individual basis because this is a group program. So, but the things that you're going to need to do I'm assuming you want to reverse those things. This is a leap.
Sure.
But I'm assuming you don't want to have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Okay, you're not going to reverse we can't do some bicycle crunches and become pre-menopausal.
Yeah.
We're not reversing menopause. So, but like high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, like you're going to need to lift weights. You're going to need to, in order to, maximize your odds of reducing these scores, you're going to need to lift weights. You're going to need to eat more fiber. You're probably going to need to eat more protein. You're probably going to need to get your calories in a better spot. You're probably potentially going to need to lose weight. Some medications, you may have a genetic predisposition to having higher blood pressure or higher cholesterol, in which case, the heart medication, like we are not trying to disobey your doctor's orders. That is not something that we're trying to do. So how does Forward Forever adapt? I'm going to say it doesn't. Would it need to? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so for somebody kind of with these questions, I would say it may be a better idea to, one, talk with a doctor about what kind of interventions might make sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
And based on their response, maybe talk to them about Forward Forever, see if it's a good fit, and maybe just work with somebody one-on-one, like a registered dietitian who can give very specific, tailored dietary advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next, how can someone get past using food for comfort so they can be consistent with a calorie deficit? I find myself realizing I ate after the fact, and it was pure emotion that drove me, not hunger. So again, I'm once again going to plug Michelle Yates.
Mm-hmm.
This is her wheelhouse.
Yeah.
She has a program that I haven't seen the inner workings of, but just based on one, I trust her. I respect her. I think she's brilliant. I would push you to check out her program, and at the very least, her account, her podcast at Yates Nutrition. Her program is called Nourished and Free. She actually trademarked that, which I think is so badass.
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, unfortunately, I do not have the tools and the skill set necessary to speak confidently on this.
Yeah.
That's just my reality. Yeah. Sorry. I don't even know if I should say sorry, because like that is a very responsible answer.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it safe that I typically get in 80 to 100 grams of fiber a day? Yes, potentially. If your GI is used to that, GI system is used to that, then all good. It depends on like kind of like where the fiber is coming from. If it's like all of those low carb wraps, then I would say like trying to get in a few varied sources, some fruits, some veggies. Try to eat the rainbow is great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody going from 10 grams to 80 grams, they are going to be shitting their brains out. It's going to be hell. It's going to be absolutely miserable. But if you have built up that tolerance and if you feel good with it, probably all good. Just be sure you're drinking plenty of water. Can I have body composition changes at maintenance? Yes, absolutely. If you are at maintenance and you're lifting weights, you're eating enough protein, you're doing all the things that helps muscle growth, getting enough sleep, managing stress, all that. And you gain, let's say 10 pounds of muscle, 5, 10, 15 pounds of muscle, but you don't change your body weight, then let's say you go 5 pounds up of muscle, you've lost 5 pounds of body fat because you stayed the same weight. Now, I will say that the deeper you get into your training career, the further advanced you go, it becomes harder. It becomes less likely to see appreciable changes on a given time scale. So for me, I've been lifting for a little over 10 years at this point, like 12 years. It would take a long time for me to see. It takes a long time for me to see changes in a bulk anyway.
Right.
So like trying to gain muscle at maintenance, it would be an uphill battle. Would it happen? Sure. But it would just be so painfully slow that I am okay accelerating it at the cost of increasing my body fat for for a small period of time. That's what happens in a calorie surplus. And when you go into a calorie surplus, for those curious, we have a how to optimize muscle growth. That's a great episode. One of our most popular episodes. I think it was episode 3.
I think so.
Anyway, that would be the one I'd listen to, but just a small surplus is all you need. Last question. Is it a bad idea or counterproductive to do sprints after a leg workout for cardio? So the interference effect was thought to be a little bit more damaging to muscle growth than, like, it used to be thought that it was more damaging than it really is, unless you are very fit, either cardiovascularly or in muscle development physique. It's probably not going to have that much of an interference effect. And you really only have to worry about this. I didn't know this until I went to see Dr. Alyssa Olenek talk in Cliss Fitness on Instagram, talk in Las Vegas, but it doesn't really matter unless you're very advanced. And she was like, and just so you know, I'm not very advanced. Speaking about herself, she's like, I'm not advanced enough to worry about it. This woman runs marathons. This woman can deadlift like 300 pounds.
Right.
This is a badass woman. Like
Mhm.
she is very fit. So if she's not advanced, what the hell am I? Like, oh my God. So I think, no, this is totally fine. If this is what works for you, she did say though, that for people who are really trying to maximize it, it seems to be that if you wait just 20 minutes from between your lifting and your cardio, that should be a good enough window to negate the potential for interference. So I personally have been just fitting in my cardio after I lift. So I lift and then I do, my cardio. I'll do cardio on my off days as well,
Mhm.
but like off days from lifting, I mean. But I don't think this is necessarily a huge deal. But if I find out down the road that it is a bigger deal than I thought, I'll update my opinion. Okay. That was great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so. These were fun questions.
These were very fun questions.
Yeah,
Thank you all so much for asking the questions. We really appreciate it. Again, we'll do these every 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, somewhere around there. We do have some guests coming up. One of them, Trevor Zerke, which I'm really excited about. That'll come out in 2 weeks after this podcast episode. And then I might reach out to Michelle, see if she wants to hop on, because I don't know if she's available, but I'd love to have her on to talk about emotional eating and stuff like that. Post-editing update. Exciting news. I reached out to Michelle and she said she would love to hop on the podcast. So expect that in the next coming weeks. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. If you really want to go the extra mile, screenshot and share in your Instagram story and tag us. Check out the A-Team with the 7-day free trial and the Forward Forever Next registration cycle. Next cycle of registration opens up May 5th. That should be it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.